Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tim with the Nintendo Dads. I just wanted to pop in real quick and do a response video to Justin's thoughts on the last Nintendo Direct, or the last OG Switch Nintendo Direct. Specifically, the part where he felt like there was this. He was trying to understand, trying to put together what Nintendo's plan was from a business perspective. The Nintendo Switch March 27th direct we got, and then we have the Switch 2 announcement coming in like 4 days from the point of when he posted this video and my response here. One of the things is that there's a drought of games that the OG Switch is going to have. Yes, we have the the Metroid Prime 4. We've got the Pokemon ZA game. But let me just play the rest of his response here. So let me go over here and play this.
But Pokemon is going to be November. Metroid, we don't have a date for. We'll see. But really, like big titles for Nintendo, big first-party titles, it's a desert right now. Now, could the Switch 2 come in and fill in some of the gap? Yes, but the games that Switch 2 are going to be talking about are Switch 2 exclusive games.
Okay. So I wanted to come in and talk about that part right there. Again, the desert, what feels like a desert of games. Of course, we have third-party games that are coming as well. We've talked about the support Nintendo will give the Switch, OG Switch, and then there's also the Switch 2 that's coming out, and there'll of course be Switch 2 exclusive games to that. However, the other thing I wanted to point out was the thing that we all keep looking at, that small print over here when we were talking about the other things in the virtual game cards. That small print says Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games and Nintendo Switch 2 edition games can only be loaded on a Nintendo Switch 2 system. I wanted to bring up that, of course, there are going to be Switch 2 exclusive games, but there's this Nintendo Switch 2 edition games that I find interesting. And yes, this is going to play into one of the predictions I had at the beginning of the year, which was, and let me just make sure I got my prediction right, what I said. And it wasn't anything I get points for, but I said that my wild card prediction was Switch 2 games will work on the Switch, but will be downgraded. So, I think that falls into the whole Nintendo Switch 2 edition games. I really think there's a possibility of, and this plays into the whole why my idea, my guess, my prediction, if you will, my theory, that there will be Switch 1 games / Switch 2 games that Nintendo will sell, that you can say, it'll be a game that comes out in the Switch 2 era, and you can pop it in your Switch 2, if it's let's talk physical for a minute, and it will play Switch 2 edition level games or whatever. It's a Switch 2 edition, and then you can plug it into your Switch 1, and it'll play the Switch 1 edition of that game. Whether that's graphic enhancements or whatever else they give you with that being a Switch 2 game, or whatever the downgrade is because you can play it on your Switch 1, this plays into that prediction that you can play, here's a game, it's for the Switch. Whether that's 1 or 2 will depend on which one you pop it into, if that makes sense. Hopefully I'm making sense here. And I think that's why we haven't heard any of those other games that are coming on. That's why we heard a couple of games coming in July, a couple of games coming in 2026. Those will have Switch 2 edition games on them, but then you could play them on the Switch 1. They work for both. One cart is what I'm trying to get at. One cart that works for both systems and gives you the benefit of, if you have a Switch 2, then you get some enhancements there. And of course, again, yes, there will be Switch 2 exclusive games, ones that will be, this game was designed specifically for the Switch 2 in mind. So there you go. It can only be put in there, and you will get that. You cannot put it in a Switch 1 and get anything out of it. So that was my rebuttal. Hopefully that makes sense. That I think this plays into that we'll get more game announcements on April 2nd, and I wanted to get that response out before that happens. so we can see if that comes true. And we'll see if my theory is right, that we will get some more game announcements that fall in those in this time frame we haven't seen, like May games, because of the potential of Switch 2 being launched in May, or even June, because we didn't see. I don't think we saw any June games, and then we still have those gaps of other months between what we saw coming in July and what we think will be coming in November for Pokemon ZA, like the potential of Metroid Prime 4 coming out in October, like a lot of people are thinking. I personally think it would be September, but it doesn't matter. As long as it comes out in 2025. So again, that's just my rebuttal for Justin. Let's see if there's any other rebuttals before we get to Wednesday. But again, this is Tim with the Nintendo Dads, and I'll check you later. Bye-bye.